let's start at that. I just want to get to the heart of how you're able to do it, because I think for a lot of people listening, they want to be more comfortable being alone. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to create their own version of success, not be dictated by the one that's been brought about by their parents or society or their industry. How did you do that?
Oh my goodness. I think it stems from the initial feeling of being uncomfortable. And knowing that you just don't want to be in that space for very long, right? So you start to look for resources to help you get out of being uncomfortable. I'd say from a young age, I was very independent. I didn't have I had a great family and I had a great upbringing as a whole, but there was a lot of unstable elements. My parents were not a good ideal marriage. I guess scenario growing up, I didn't see what marriage and what a compatible relationship really looked like. And I learned to, at that point, sort of take control of my own life and taking care of my brother, make sure that I always made money. I was a little kid hustler. It was really weird if I think back to the things that I was doing, like making clothes, selling clothes, rhinestoning, anything that was popular at the time. I learned to do it very quickly. People wanted braids. People wanted their ears pierced. I was all over the place. Okay. When I think about it, I'm just to make school lunch, money for lunch, or when I was vegan, I had to buy my own groceries. So I learned okay, I'm having a garage sale this weekend because I want to get Follow Your Heart mayo. You know what I mean? Everything was one for one. And I learned that it wasn't going to happen on its own. So regardless of my upbringing and sort of the chaos that was going on at home, which at the time I thought was normal. And which is even more weird. I knew it was weird and I knew it was uncomfortable and I knew that they weren't a good fit for one another, but I accepted it and I sort of became my own adult at a young age. Meanwhile, I'm acting. I'm in an adult world. I didn't go to high school. I really wasn't even in middle school for very often. I was on a series at the time. I was the only kid on the show, so I went to school in a trailer, a tiny trailer, just me and this incredibly political teacher that wanted to push every election on this 14, 15-year-old kid. So learn a little about that and what not to do.
Wow.
And I think one of the things I learned very quickly was, like I said, I had control over certain things. So I started to control what I ate to a point where it was unhealthy. Did go through an eating disorder while being on a show. I've never really admitted that, but yeah, I dropped down significantly. I mean, I must have been at one point my lowest, 16 years old, 70-something pounds. I was on a CBS series, so the network was not happy. And in order to appease them, they did so much to try and help. They made sure that I had tons of vegan food and smoothies. They made sure I was going to meetings in the morning. I was so confused. I didn't think I had a problem. I wasn't being honest with myself. I was trying to sort of cope with being very quickly emerged into an adult world while knowing that I had a brother who was sort of still in the home scenario that wasn't healthy and wanted to help him and wanted to help my family, and realized that I need to be making a lot of money because money is going to help all of this. And so the drive was on another level. And having control over the things that I could, which was food and working out and staying as busy as I could and being as motivated as I could, really drove me to skin and bones. But I saw the light pretty quickly, and I'm going to be so honest about that. I'm so grateful that I have this consciousness in me where I don't need to go down a rabbit hole very long to learn that the bottom is up. And I learned that I had no choice but to be healthy. And that's where I started to talk more about health. And that's when I really started to lean on what I was and what gave me purpose and what made me happy. And speaking up for animals and taking jobs that I knew were positive and fun and interesting and not dark and deep and too far stretched from the imagination was what I wanted to do. I became very selective in what I worked on. I then ended up on Nickelodeon, therefore, because I knew that that's family friendly, that's happy, that's colorful, that makes me feel good. Like I'm getting in the lives of children, which like for me, that's a game changer. I love children. I think they're the future, and I want to have a significant role in their lives. I took being on Nickelodeon so seriously that I knew being a role model meant everything to me. I'm a big sister. I'm the oldest of my cousins. And being on a show where I knew kids were watching meant that I had a position in their lives, that I was someone that they could look up to. And so that's been really powerful. And to this day, I still have young kids, teens, adults, that grew up watching me on the last 12 years of being on Nickelodeon come up to me and have nice things to say. And I just want to keep that trajectory going. That's really important to me.
But that's amazing that you see it as a responsibility almost, because you know that people are watching you, people are seeing you as a role model. As I said earlier, this show for me is really to talk to real models, people who can express their reality, and people who I think are real models for the world to follow. You're definitely one of them in so many areas of your life. But I think it's really special that you took it as a responsibility, because I think it's so easy at that age to be on Nickelodeon, to have fame, to have success, and to just enjoy it. Like, it's like, why do you even need to care about anyone else? Because you've worked hard to get there. But it seems like you've always just had this responsibility in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because sometimes I wish that I had a little bit more of that, because I find myself wanting to help so much along the way and wanting to get to a certain place so that I could help more people, that I don't celebrate the small victories in the timeline, like I just kind of know that there's so many people and so many animals and so many resources in the planet. I mean, you could go down forever, right? Like you can think about, and I think for me, one of the things that is always in the back of my head is my family and the people that sort of suffer with things in my family. My brother, who feels like he's almost like my own child, he suffers with addiction and has been homeless for probably on and off for about a year or two. Sorry. I've never actually spoke about it. So that for me, to see that in my own four walls, and like the closest thing to me, the kid who, he slept in my room the majority of my life. He had his own bedroom, but he slept in my room on a trundle bed because I feel like I was like his safety net. So I've learned that I want to be that, because I know that I have that capability, and I want to be that for more people. I could be that for him, and I could do as much as I possibly can, but I want to help people before they get to a place where it's harder to make a change. So I've really tried to make that a big goal of mine.
Yeah, and in a big way.
Yeah.
I think, thank you for sharing that, by the way. I'm sure it wasn't easy. And yeah, thank you for being so open and vulnerable and just sharing so genuinely here, because I don't think that you're someone that ever hides anything. I never feel that way. Like when I'm following you on Instagram or I see any of the content you're making, it's just from the heart. It feels that way to me anyway. And when I'm hearing you today, I'm actually loving learning about you even more, because it's only making me appreciate everything else you do.
Thank you.
And it's crazy because I align with so much of what you're saying in my own life. So my sister's nickname that I've given her is Kid, because I treat her as my kid, like my child. So it's so funny that you said that about your brother. And similarly in our parents, I felt I mediated my parents' marriage growing up. So I can definitely resonate with that. And then I resonate with something else. And I'm listening to you and I'm just going like, wow, there's so much in common. And I know you were saying it earlier when we were outside, but it was the same as the not celebrating little wins.
Yeah.
I rarely do that because I see how much work that needs to be done in the world. So I'm constantly focusing on what's next to solve, or not what's next to heal, what's next to have an impact on.
Totally.
Where do you kind of see that going, or how do you want that to grow? Because we haven't even started talking about all the great activism work you're doing, which I think is important for people listening to know. But how do you see yourself kind of transforming those elements we've just spoken about now, moving forward? How do you want them to change?
Sure. So I've been sort of, in a lot of ways I've earned, but I've also been given this platform just from really being on TV and being in people's lives and feeling like they're connected to me. So I want to utilize that. I want to grow that, and I want to utilize that for the good. I think that, yes, I'm invested in these companies, and I like to call them conscious companies because they're not purely just for the monetary investment. They're there because I see a bigger picture. So companies like Outstanding Foods, I know that they have a direct effect in the lives of animals, not to mention the health and the other trickle effects that come along with it. But companies like Sugar Taco, I believe in making vegan food, healthy, organic, vegan food that tastes delicious, accessible at a good price point. Because that's an argument of people's, they have this idea that veganism is too expensive. It's not attainable. It's not realistic for a normal person's lifestyle. That is what I want to scratch right off the bat. That is so far from the truth. And I feel like, just not to go down another rabbit hole, but
do it.
Spending money on what you put into your body, much like spending the time and whatever investment you make to work out or health, wellness, whatever that means, meditating, whatever that investment you're making has such a huge impact in the big picture of your life. A lot of people spend all this money on healthcare, on pills, on things to make this instant fix in their lives, when if you just do a little bit of the work along the way and you're really being mindful of how you create you as a whole and what you do to help yourself thrive, that is a non-factor. I don't know, knock on wood, but I don't know the last time I've seen a doctor, spent money at a pharmacist, all of the above. Never. I don't even take an Advil, a Tylenol, nothing.
Wow.
But I really do believe that a lot of that is because I make conscious efforts to drink water, to work out, to love myself, to meditate, to do something that makes me feel whole and balanced. So that goes along without saying, right? With these conscious companies, like if you can make these baby steps along the way and they become easy to implement into your lifestyle, then hopefully the bigger picture is that someone will gravitate towards either eating plant-based or taking better care of themselves and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the companies that I've invested in thus far. I have a couple that are on the ground level startups, I'm sure you know, where it's, it's
and
not,
I'm excited,
right?
As a consumer, as a future customer.
I appreciate that.
I'm so excited. But I love the way you do it, because if you don't follow Daniella on Instagram, you should go and follow her, because you make it fun. It's not preachy.
Thank you.
It's never condescending. You never sound like you're better than anyone, or you've got it right, or you've got it figured out. It always comes from that space of you make it look fun. I saw you on your recent video, you went on the streets out with the big pig mascot.
Yeah.
And you were out with Pig Out Bacon. And I loved it. I was just like, this energy is so fun. And even the fact, when we were speaking about it earlier, and you mentioned it now about how you've focused on making vegan food accessible and affordable, I just think the way you're thinking is so far ahead.
Good,
you're so far ahead of how others are thinking about helping people.
Thank you.
And I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just think that there's so many people that are underserved. And there's these stereotypes that go along with that, right? You don't make a lot. You have to eat a certain way. They pump these saturated cities that are lower income with the McDonald's, with the Jack in the Box, with the elements that these people can afford, right? They're not serving these communities in the right way. That's setting people up for the opposite of success. So to create awareness via social media and using your voice or the platform that you have to implement these different lifestyle changes along the way, I think that person tells their friend, tells their mom, that's the way that I think. So the more honest I can be with people about how I live, and really it's just how I live. It's not like perfect in any means, but it's just, for me, it's worked. And when something works, I just want people to know. And I think it's our right to share with people and help people along the way. Because why wouldn't you? If you're thriving in your own right, then why wouldn't you share whatever tips or tricks that you have? And so I I've sort of started a little pet project just on Instagram called Daniella's Digest. And it kind of goes in different terms of the word, right? So it's like, yes, what we put into our body and we digest it and all those kind of things. But also in general, like I just want to break down different articles and different facts and share inspiring messages. And eventually I see myself interviewing people in this space, the health and wellness space, but also just always reminding ourselves to keep it light and fun.
Yes.
Because that's how I got into these people's lives. I'll never forget that. I do sitcom, I do comedy, that's my forte. And that's the approach I have in life. You know, if we can't laugh at it, even if it is deep and dark and scary, we have to find the light, or else there's no optimism. There's no potential for change or innovation. You have to constantly be kind of seeking out the light, even in the darkest of times. And that's what I want this platform to sort of be. And I want that to resonate with people. If they're feeling like they're not motivated today or they need a nudge, like that's what I want to be there to do. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, go find it on Instagram, Daniella's Digest, right? Yeah, I had it down on the notes. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you're doing that. And I couldn't agree with you more. My whole reasoning behind doing video at a time when most people in the health and wellness space were doing courses or they were writing books and they were speaking. And I was just like, we need to get this out to everyone. And my whole goal when I first started making videos was to make content that was at the pace of entertainment. So I wanted it to feel like a short movie. I wanted it to feel like a song. I wanted it to feel like entertainment as opposed to education.
Yeah.
But for it to have insightful messages within it. Now I'm not funny, so I had to make meaningful videos that are not comedic. But I love it when comedy or anything is used from the point of view of. I love it when comedy or any of this is viewed with the point of getting people towards the light. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm so glad you're doing that. We need that more and more and more.
Thank you.
Yeah, we genuinely need that more and more.
Thank you.
And I think the more of us that use our platforms and our skills and the talents that we have in whatever way it is to make things accessible, easy, relevant to everyone in the world, the more likely we're going to see it.
Yeah.
See it take
100%.
off.
I mean, they exist for a reason and you could use them however you choose. And I choose to think I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time and I'm going to try to make some good out of it.
Yeah.
I want to do that for people. And
you are.
Thank you. So, I mean, please, you're preaching to the choir. Okay. So it's been so awesome to be able to see the content that you're creating. And honestly, it never stops at that. Like I love the word trickle effect because I feel like that is the perfect word to explain what is happening in our generation and in the generation of social media. You just never know. And I think the unknown in that regard is optimism. And that's what I'm sort of striving for, is more of that.
Yeah, I wanted to pick that out because I think so many people in our generation also have a negative view of social media.
Yeah.
And I find that's because we're so consumed by it rather than using it purposefully. And so we find that people actually feel they're wasting. I know I saw a study that said people are wasting about 6 hours a day on social media, doing something meaningless or insignificant. Where do you get your optimism for social media and the trickle effect? I know I get it, but how did you get to that point where you were like, actually, social media is helping, it can work?
I think it started with realizing, it's no different than taking that few minutes for yourself in the beginning of the day to drink your coffee or read a magazine or whatever it may be, watch the news. You're getting some sort of information to sort of, and that really does trigger what's your day is going to be like, what's going to sort of ignite that spirit in you. And so I think people can use social media to do just that. They just have to curate the right social media that they're sort of funneling into themselves. And that's why I feel like accounts like yours are that is the proof in the pudding right there. Starting your day off, and I know that you're strategic about when you post, because when I turn my phone on and it's the first video I see, I'm grateful because I know that that's what my brain needs to absorb. If I'm going to choose to use social media, I'm going to choose to sort of put these positive images and these positive messages into me rather than seeing, I hate to say it because no discount to them, they're a hustler in their own right, and I'm sure they have their own purpose in mind, but I don't need to see 100 different beauty bloggers and OOTDs to make myself feel like I'm good, good enough. It doesn't do that for me personally. And some people do resonate with that. But personally, my goals are so different than that. And so I think for someone out there who looks at social media in a negative way, be sure that you're using social media to benefit you and you're not just a consumer. And maybe take the approach of trying to create before you consume. I think that that's a really good tool to go about, because creating something that could have its own trickle effect makes you feel like you're part of a bigger purpose. Consuming social media, unless you're using it purposefully, can really weigh on you.
So well said.
Oh, thank you.
So well said. Create before you consume. I totally agree. When you're part of something, when you're part of creating something, it doesn't take you away from anything, right? When you're part of creating what everyone else is seeing. And I have to say that I get motivated by Daniella's extreme workout regimes. Like, I'm just like, wow, I need to. Yesterday you were pushing a truck.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, what? I was like, oh my God. Like, you pushed it and then you were chasing it.
Yeah.
And then you ran around it.
Oh, goodness.
And I was just like, wow, this is so epic. I was so impressed by it. I was
Thank you.
But it's great. But that discipline you have, and I feel the same way about yours. You post so many, and you do make it funny too. Like, I remember there was a time when you were eating avo toast every day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm a huge avo toast fan. So
Yeah.
it was just, I couldn't agree with you more. I think also when you're also able to connect, I find that the thing I love about social media is that you really attract the energy you create. You really attract the energy you put out. So if you're always putting out positive, meaningful messages, whether they're comedic or whether they're from my side more inspirational or positive, whatever they may be, you start attracting people. And that's how we connected.
Yeah.
Like, we met once, but then I was following you on social media. I was like, oh wow, we aligned so much. And then we had a relationship built up out of social media.
Yeah.
And we've not met often. This is, in fact, probably the second time we've been together, but I feel like I know you so well. And that's what I've loved about it, that when I've accelerated a relationship, and I say this to everyone, if you built up a good connection with someone online, go offline as soon as you can. Like, try and meet with that person for coffee or have lunch together or whatever it is, obviously verifying that they're real and all the rest of it. But go and do that, because you're going to build an amazing relationship with that person. You know, don't let it just be online. If you can go and meet that person, do it.
I love that piece of advice. I think that's so great. And especially in this time where so many people can go years or longer with just having these not fictional, they're real relationships, but without putting a face to the name and having that physical connection. I think there's so much more that can come of that. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
I want to go back to when you were talking a bit about your parents and growing up, and now obviously you're engaged.
Yeah.
You're engaged last December, you were sharing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I was lucky enough to meet your fiance as well, which was awesome when we first met. And you guys are just so cute together.
Thank you.
I love it. Yeah.
Thank you. We work at it. That's,
Yeah.
it's the biggest part of it, right? You want something so bad, you work at it. We just connected. We work well together for the most part, and I think we support one another's endeavors and we respect each other's independence, but we're very much a unit. I know we were talking earlier because a lot of people ask me about the wedding, and there's so much of that on social media. These big moments, these big chapters in your life are celebrated to the nines. I mean, the likes, the comments, the excitement around the buildup of an engagement or a proposal or a wedding or whatever. It almost makes you feel like like everything in the middle is insignificant, which I think is such a misconception, because it's the day-to-day that feels like the real success in a relationship.
Wow.
You know, we can all have these moments where we celebrate one another, and everyone around us is celebrating our love, and there's so much just anticipation around that. But really, it's the day-to-day grind. It's no different than building a company. It's that day-to-day grind that inevitably sets you up for a successful business or relationship. And I feel like we're doing that. And the wedding is not on the forefront of my mind. I'm really more focused on being the right fit and the right partnership. And on that note.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's like my main focus, is just being the right fit and having the right partnership together.
What do you guys do to do that? What's your approach? What have you learned? How long have you been together?
We've been together almost 8 years.
Amazing. So you've been together for 8 years. So that anyone who's listening, that's real experience.
Yeah.
That's not, that's not just, we've been together for a year. So you've been together for 8 years. What have you learned? What has worked for you? What could help other people?
He was my first relationship. So when I say I've learned, I have learned, okay? In terms of the moving in together and having this co-lifestyle was easy. That was easy peasy. I love it, which is interesting, right? Most people are like, moving in is a very, it could go one of two ways. And for us, it was like, I love to nurture and I love to nest. And anyone who's around me and comes over, I crave that taking care of element. Like that's something that feeds my soul. So easy, that fit right. Right in. I think for me, I have an independence element that I've established since a young age. And so being in a relationship, sometimes that can be a little bit of a tricky element, but he's also an entrepreneur in his own right. So we sort of balance each other out. Like I found that person who can respect that quality in me and lifts that quality up, rather than saying, oh yeah, it's another dream or whatever, like. So we work at it, and we've been figuring out how to communicate along the years, and like that changes as you evolve as humans, and it's been fun. And I think that to me is what keeps us interesting, is that it's not monotonous. I mean, it's monotonous in a way that we're one for each other and that's it. Sure. But it's not monotonous in our daily, weekly, monthly grind. Like we love adventures and we love trying new things, and we talk about, not falling into the, conventional relationship or what that may be for some people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that we were both talking about our, what's the right word?
It's like
lack of
status quo.
Yeah,
like
our not discuss.
It's almost like we're not trying to follow the rules or something.
Yeah,
whatever the rules are.
Yeah, I don't know who invented the rules.
Who invented them?
Yeah, who invented them? I don't agree with any of them.
Yes.
And why do they have to be tied to a certain age or a certain demographic or a certain stage of life? And I've just never thought like that. I've never felt that life is a set of stages that you have to live in order. And I feel like the more you do that, you push away from what you were saying, which is falling in love with